Since the beginning of time, women have had to overcome prejudices and fight for their rights. From Nefertiti powerfully ruling Egypt, to Joan of Arc leading France to victory, to Malala pushing for women's educational rights, women have valiantly challenged the limitations put upon them. Katharine Hepburn Sr. and her daughter, the famous actress, were among the army that shaped a women's world today. Katharine Houghton Hepburn, or Kit as her family called her, was born in 1878 in Corning, New York. Her family founded the Corning Glassworks Company, a lucrative business that brought them wealth and notoriety in the area. Her parents were very progressive thinkers and encouraged their three daughters to be the same. Katharine graduated Bryn Mawr, class of 1899, with a Bachelor of Arts in History and Chemistry, and went on to get her master's degree in Physics and Chemistry from Radcliffe College. After graduation, Kit Houghton traveled through New England, teaching at numerous schools. She met Tom Hepburn when she was a medical student at Johns Hopkins, where Kit's sister, Edith, was studying. When Tom was in his final year of school, the two married and moved to Hartford, Connecticut. Between 1905 and 1918, Tom and Kit had 6 kids, including the famous actress Katharine Hepburn. Kit stopped teaching and spent her time fighting for women's rights to vote, which was banned until 1920. With her friends in Hartford, Hepburn assembled the Hartford Equal Franchise League, which grew rapidly to 20,000 members and was eventually absorbed into the Connecticut Women's Suffrage Association, which previously had dropped to nearly 50 members. From 1910 to 1917, Hepburn herself served as the president of the CWSA. She organized rallies and demonstrations. In 1914, the first ever suffrage parade was held in Connecticut with over 2,000 people marching. In this position, Kit wrote many pamphlets on pressing topics of the time. In 1913, she wrote the pamphlet called "The Revolution in Women's Work Makes Votes for Women a Practical Necessity." She opened, saying, "During the past 100 years, there have been a complete revolution in industrial and social conditions. In consequence of this, the position of women and their conditions of work have undergone a change nothing short of revolutionary." Hepburn said that the government ignores the disenfranchised classes and only listens to those who support them. She ends with, "For this reason, votes for women is a natural and necessary result of present-day conditions." The pamphlet was published in many states to spur women to fight for their rights. Hepburn spoke at many suffrage meetings and represented the CWSA at multiple conferences, including at a meeting with President Woodrow Wilson. In 1917, Hepburn resigned from the CWSA, complaining that it was outdated and supine, however hard she tried to sway them. Kit allied with Alice Paul and the National Women's Party until women gained the right to vote with the 19th Amendment in 1920. Within 2 months, Kit was appointed as a National Executive Committee member of the party. After the vote was won, Hepburn was offered a run for a seat on the U.S. Senate. Instead, she focused on campaigning against the anti-birth control laws in Connecticut and across the U.S.
The Comstock laws forbade obscene material to go through the U.S. mail. And this meant that anything that mentioned sex or birth control could be shut down and confiscated.
With this, many states passed additional laws to stop the distribution of contraceptives and any related materials. Connecticut, however, was the only state to pass another law in 1879 banning birth control and requiring a fine and a minimum of 2 months' imprisonment. The only exceptions were condoms, only allowed because they prevented disease.
We also have a couple examples of contraception. We have 3 different boxes for condoms, which were already available, but of course relied on cooperation with a male partner. Instead, Margaret Sanger was advocating that women use cervical caps, also called pessaries, which are a precursor to a diaphragm and were inexpensive, safe, and controlled by a woman.
Although she had 6 children, Hepburn understood that, for many poor women, bearing children was simply an onerous duty, seriously affecting their health, welfare, and psychological development. She stated that Connecticut's laws prohibiting birth control were discriminatory against the lower socioeconomic classes. Wealthy women could find sympathetic doctors or travel to get birth control, but poor women lacked those resources. Hepburn joined Sanger to help found the American Birth Control League in 1921. Sanger soon appointed Hepburn as a chair on the National Committee on Federal Legislation for Birth Control. Hepburn also founded a birth control league in Connecticut. She spoke to the Connecticut legislature many times, each time resulting in rejection of her proposed bill. Hepburn united with Sanger for Washington congressional hearings.
Many people were against birth control because it represented a fundamental change in gender roles and sexuality. If you were advocating for birth control, it might mean that you were advocating for extramarital sex, premarital sex, or a change in relationships that gave women more power in their lives.
In 1935, Hepburn was instrumental in setting up an illegal birth control clinic in Hartford, but it was forced to shut down. Infuriated, Hepburn led the Connecticut Birth Control League to challenge the archaic law that Hepburn said was designed to prevent immorality and indecency and not to interfere with competent physicians in protecting the health and well-being of their patients. This eventually led to the court case Griswold versus Connecticut in 1965, which finally abolished the Comstock laws. Hepburn's campaigning died down as she got older, but she never stopped supporting the cause. In 1951, Katharine Houghton Hepburn died. Katharine Hepburn was born on May 12th in 1907. Kit Hepburn taught her children well. Every day at 5, the tight-knit family would have tea and discuss Shakespeare, Shaw, and various issues of the day. Kate said, "I'm just something from New England that was very American and brought up by two extremely intelligent people who gave us the greatest gifts that man can give anyone: freedom from fear." While many people scorned Kit and Tom's household openness and their audacious discussions on improper subjects, the family was strong-willed and continued to inspire independence in their progeny. Kate was notoriously athletic and boyish. She excelled at tennis, swimming, and golf. She was extremely close with her older brother Tom, and she would tend to hang out with him and his friends. When she was 9, Kate cut her hair and insisted on people calling her Jimmy. She wore boys' clothing as well. When she was 13, Kate went with her mother and brother Tom to New York for a vacation. They stayed with their Auntie Towel and saw many plays. One morning, after Tom wasn't coming down for breakfast, Kate went into his room and found him hanging from the ceiling. She became aloof and moody and had to be taken out of high school. The rest of her education was done by tutors. Kate went on to Bryn Mawr, where her peculiar boyish and sassy attitude and her different style was well known. Henry Fonda later remarks, "Hepburn is a presence wherever she is. In a room, she is the only one in it. In a big area, she doesn't have anything to dominate. She just does and is." By the time she graduated from Bryn Mawr, Katharine knew she wanted to pursue acting. She bounced from stock company to stock company, performing in plays. After much struggle, Hepburn dominated Hollywood, constantly landing leads. However, after multiple bad reviews and movie flops, Hepburn was deemed box office poison. She returned to Broadway and revived her career there and in the film industry. Independently, she shaped her reputation and vocation. Throughout her career, Katharine was defiant. She declined playing classic women's roles. She argued for the rights to her own films, for better pay, and for equal treatment. Unlike many of the other starlets of the time, she refused to bathe in the spotlight, and reporters struggled to get a picture, much less an interview. She once grabbed a camera out of a photographer's hand when he tried to take a picture of her without asking. Most renowned was her style. Thought of as angular and sexless, most people viewed her as too masculine. She dressed very casually in an age of frivolity. In the 1930s, women could be arrested for wearing trousers and masquerading as men. Nevertheless, Hepburn persisted. When RKO took her jeans, Hepburn refused to wear a skirt, and instead walked around in her underwear. Similarly, when abroad in London, a hotel manager told her she could not wear trousers in the lobby, and she promptly asked where the service entrance was. This bold choice drew attention and caused a revolution against the status quo. While she was certainly not the first star to wear trousers, Garbo and Dietrich had also dabbled in this fashion, Hepburn was the only one to wear pants for mobility and comfort rather than fashion, and the trend caught on. Multiple magazines remarked how Hollywood was going Hepburn and more women were wearing pants. Later, Hepburn reflected, "I have not lived as a woman, I have lived as a man. I've just done what I damn well wanted to, and I made enough money to support myself, and I ain't afraid of being alone." Today, we are still fighting for equality for women. We are still fighting for abortion rights, equal pay, and the destruction of harmful stereotypes. We are still fighting for the freedom to walk down a dark street alone, not hear catcalls or remarks, and not fear harassment. But we have come so far. Both Kit Hepburn and her daughter Kate opposed the standards placed upon them and refused to compromise and back down. They battled conflict after conflict.